Just imagine this. What if I told you about a power so great that after you learn it, people will literally beg you to speak? Sounds impossible, right? Well, what if I told you this superpower isn't about talking more, but just the opposite? Knowing when to be silent. Look at the world we live in today. It's complete chaos. We are drowning in noise. Every notification on your phone screams, "Look at me." Everyone is scrambling to make their opinion heard. Patience is gone. Even a simple glance can instantly turn into a massive fight. And it's not just phone notifications, it's the mindless scrolling through stories until our thumbs are numb. The endless Zoom meetings, the horns in traffic. Our minds are constantly full. They're never empty. So, have you ever stopped to think, maybe the most powerful people aren't the loudest ones, but the ones who can remain silent? The famous Stoic philosopher Seneca had a great saying, "Empty vessels make the most noise." Now let me share a story with you that will change how you think about silence forever. On the edge of a vast desert, in a small town, lived a wise woman. Her wisdom was famous, but she didn't share it easily. One day, the town's ambitious young merchant came to her. You could see the anxiety on his face. "How can I earn respect?" he asked. "How do I get people to truly value me?" The wise woman stayed silent for a moment. She listened, studying him. Then she calmly said, "Come back tomorrow at dawn, and say nothing. Just follow me." The next morning, the wise woman took the merchant into the desert. She had him stand in the middle of the endless sand and just watch how the wind silently shaped the dunes. She showed him how the desert commanded respect without saying a single word. The desert, in its magnificent silence, displayed all its power. The wise woman didn't say a thing, but she taught the merchant a powerful lesson right before his eyes. Stillness is sometimes more powerful than movement. Silence sometimes leaves a deeper mark than words. From that day on, the merchant never forgot this lesson. He stopped trying to constantly talk and prove himself. With his silence, his steady presence, and his ability to act at the right moment, he became the most respected person in town. He watched in amazement as changing just one thing changed his entire life. In today's video, you will learn how to bring this power of silence into your life, just like that merchant. In the next 9 lessons, you'll discover why the most powerful people aren't the ones who react to everything, but the ones who know when to be quiet. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why sometimes the less you say, the more people line up to hear you. But before we begin, this is different from what you've heard before. These aren't empty motivation slogans or theories. These are 2,000-year-old battle-tested Stoic principles that have transformed lives. If you're ready to discover why silence might be your most powerful weapon, let's begin. The power of silence. So, have you ever felt like this? Your surroundings are so noisy you can't even hear your own thoughts. It's like the constant noise from the outside world has invaded the deepest corners of your brain. At a certain point, you just need to stop, look inside, and discover the things you've been ignoring. The noise out there doesn't just cloud our view of the world, it clouds our view of ourselves. We're in a constant race, a state of constant busyness. Everyone is trying to say something. But in this race, who can stop? More importantly, who dares to stop? Notifications pour in, endless chatter fills our minds, and we try to fill every gap by talking faster. But what if silence is the most powerful tool you have? To understand the importance of silence, let's pause. What is silence? It's not just not talking. Silence is a space where the noise inside you stops. It's a safe harbor where you can listen to your deepest thoughts, the ones usually drowned out by daily stress. So silence isn't an emptiness. It's an opportunity to discover yourself. People have done this throughout history. They stepped away from the chaos of the world to go on deep journeys of self-understanding. There's an ancient and effective method called a silent retreat. This practice allows a person to step back and just observe, without the pressure to respond or react. Even today, CEOs in Silicon Valley attend 10-day silent retreats, like Vipassana, to make better decisions. Why? because noise kills creativity, but silence feeds it. A silent retreat is a radical act of stopping. By stopping and doing nothing, you finally create the space to start doing the things that truly matter. In this age of information overload and endless noise, silence is a sanctuary. But let's admit it, at first it can feel uncomfortable, even scary. We are so used to filling every void with words, ideas, and sounds. In silence, there's nowhere to run. You are left alone with yourself. You come face to face with the real you. When we're silent, the fears, anxieties, and regrets we've suppressed come to the surface. And to escape them, we immediately grab our phones or turn on the TV. The Stoics say, don't run, stop, and listen, because what you hear in that silence, that is your true self. As the great Stoic master Seneca said, tranquility is the highest good. But to find this good, you must first learn to be silent. And Seneca wasn't just talking about shutting your mouth. He was talking about stepping back so you can see life from a wider perspective. Listening with the soul. Have you ever noticed that when someone is talking, instead of actually listening to them, you're just planning what you're going to say next? It's like we're programmed not to understand, but to wait for our turn to deliver the best reply. The act of listening, unfortunately, has lost its soul. We don't listen anymore. Instead, there's a race to be the first one to jump in, the first to have an opinion, the first to fix the problem. This is where Stoic philosophy, that ancient school of wisdom, teaches us something that sounds simple but is incredibly hard to do. Don't act on impulse. This skill of pausing isn't just about controlling our own reactions. It's about how we connect with others. The Stoics believe that just as our emotions need to settle before we make a decision, our responses need to wait for the right moment. Think about it. How many misunderstandings, pointless arguments, or awkward moments could we have avoided if we just truly listened instead of speaking without thinking? This doesn't mean be a passive bystander. It's an invitation to stop listening to reply and start listening to understand. When a friend comes to you going through a hard time, what's our first instinct? To give advice. I think you should do this. If I were you. But what if, in that moment, your friend's only need wasn't for advice but for an ear? Someone who would listen without judging, without interrupting, and without minimizing their problem. This is the power of true listening. You don't need to have the solution. You just need to be there. Often, that's all people want. There's a practical way to do this. I call it the echo technique. When the person finishes talking, pause. Instead of giving advice, say, "So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying you feel undervalued at work. Is that right?" This simple sentence makes the other person feel heard and buys you time to think. When was the last time you listened to someone, really listened, to hear the emotion behind their words, not just to wait for your turn? If we learn to listen this way, our relationships become deeper, our connections more genuine, but it requires us to get off that autopilot mode where our brain is always searching for the next great idea or waiting for the perfect moment to jump in. As the Stoics said, true wisdom is not found in the words we speak, but in the silent understanding we can create between them. The courage to not react. When someone insults you, makes a disturbing comment, or the tension in the room suddenly spikes, do you notice how your body instantly goes on high alert? Of course you do. It happens to all of us. The real question is, in that moment, did you stop and think, what am I doing right now? Or did you go on autopilot and react immediately? Controlling your emotions isn't something you learn overnight. It's a skill mastered over time. In our most impulsive state, we all have a reaction button, an unwanted criticism, a dirty look, or a simple misunderstanding. The moment someone pushes that button, our first instinct is to defend ourselves. These buttons are often tied to our ego. We don't react because someone called us incompetent. We react because we already fear that we are inadequate. A Stoic, when that button is pushed, stops. Instead of reacting, they ask, does this comment reflect a truth I control, or just someone else's opinion? So what happens when we give in to this impulse? Usually we get stuck in a vicious cycle of quick reactions that, instead of solving anything, just add fuel to the fire. Think of a recent time this happened. Maybe you said something in an argument you later regretted. Did that quick reaction, that defensive comeback, actually help you? Probably not. The Stoics understood this perfectly. This ancient philosophy doesn't mince words. True power isn't reacting, it's responding wisely. The Stoics didn't fight their emotions. They observed them, understood them, and then decided if they were worth acting on. Just 1 minute of thinking can save you from days of regret. Let's call this strategic silence. This isn't the silent treatment to punish others. It's giving yourself space to think and refocus. Think about the people who can stay quiet in the middle of a heated argument, who just by being calm, change the entire energy of the room. Their calm presence is like it's saying, "I'll let you scream, but I will not join your game." This kind of tranquility shows just how powerful a stance silence can be. This conscious non-reaction is not weakness, it is strength in disguise. At first, it might feel strange, like you're missing your chance to defend yourself, but in reality, you are defending yourself in a much more powerful way, with calm, with intelligence, and above all, with dignity. As Epictetus said, the true show of power is not in what you say, but in what you choose to keep silent. Choosing to be silent means, my dignity is far beyond your insult. They can't drag you into a fight because you're not fighting on that level. Calm in the storm. Imagine you're in the middle of a hurricane. Not a real one, of course, but a metaphorical hurricane. Those moments in life when everything seems to be going wrong. You're fighting with your family. Your job feels like a war zone, and you're not even sure if your friends are supporting you or just looking for drama. And there you are, trapped in the middle of this storm of emotions, thoughts, and stress. Now, instead of running or panicking, imagine you just stop for a moment. You take a deep breath, and instead of following the chaos, you become the center of all that chaos. I know it sounds like a cheap self-help slogan, but what if I told you there's real wisdom in this, something the Stoics knew and practiced for thousands of years? Staying calm in the middle of chaos is more than a psychological trick. It's a survival strategy. It's the strategy of staying silent when everyone else is shouting, of refusing to get swept up in the emotional current. It's that inner peace that allows you to make logical decisions and not act on impulse. You've probably learned this the hard way. Think of a simple example. A tense family dinner. Everyone is defending their own opinion, bringing up old arguments, and voices are rising. The air is thick with tension. In that moment, you feel an incredible urge to say something, to correct someone, or to get defensive. But right then, you stop. You decide to pull back. You say nothing. You just take a deep breath and silently start to observe. You notice why someone is so upset, what emotions are really doing the talking. The argument continues for a while, but eventually everyone gets tired. A silence starts to creep in, and in that moment, you speak. Calmly and clearly, you say a few words that diffuse the situation. Suddenly, the mood shifts. Everyone is listening to you. Your voice in the middle of all that shouting is heard like a guide. Maybe what you say ends the argument, or maybe it gives a family member the emotional support they needed. The same goes for the workplace. In a crisis where everyone is panicking and blaming each other, the person who can calmly stand up and say, "Okay, what's done is done. Here are our options," that is the most powerful person in the room. Leadership isn't about shouting, it's about bringing clarity to chaos. Your silence created an island of calm. That is the power of silence. The observation that comes before words, the patience to wait for the right moment, and the ability to stop the chaos with one effective message. Stoic philosophy teaches us to focus on what we can control and accept what we cannot. The idea here is to let the emotional winds blow hard, but not let them uproot you. Stay in the center, because your true strength lies in this silence. As Marcus Aurelius said, tranquility is not the absence of the storm, but the ability to stand firm within it. The wisdom of observation. Have you ever considered that maybe what you need isn't to have an answer for everything, but to learn to be silent and observe? Yeah, it sounds strange. We're so used to being the star of our own life's movie that the idea of being an observer sounds boring. But think about it. How many times have your emotions taken over, simply because you didn't know how to step back? In this noisy world where everyone is shouting their opinion and demanding instant answers, the art of silent observation has been lost. When we face a tough situation, our first instinct is to react, to defend, to get involved. But Stoic wisdom invites us to do something much simpler. Take a step back. The observant mind is like an audience member in a theater. It doesn't let the plot drag it onto the stage, but by sitting back, it understands the play better than anyone. From the audience, you can see the performance of the actors, your emotions, better. You understand why anger just stormed on stage, why anxiety forgot its lines, and why fear is hiding from the spotlight. When you're playing the lead role, you just experience the chaos. From the audience, you understand the play. This approach requires great discipline. It's not easy to stay quiet when everyone around you expects you to say something. Sometimes the best move is to not move a muscle. If you stay still, without rushing, without interfering, this calm space opens a door to a deeper understanding of what's happening around you. Instead of emotionally sticking to every event or conversation, imagine you are a bridge between the outside world and your inner calm. Let me tell you a secret. Most of your problems don't come from what happens to you, but from how you react to what happens. If you get swept away by everything that affects you, you're like a ping-pong ball in a game with no rules. When you react, you are the ball. But when you observe, you are the paddle. You decide when to speed up the game and when to slow it down. But if you can manage to observe without judging, your mind becomes a much more powerful tool. How do we do this? Start simple. The next time you feel a situation getting on your nerves, give yourself permission to take one step back. You don't need to do anything extraordinary. Just observe. What are you feeling? Why are you feeling it? Is it really necessary to react right now, or can you afford to wait? You will be amazed to see that when the world tries to force you to speak, and you manage to stay silent, soon others will be begging to hear your opinion. Because you are in control. Not because you forced your will, but because you gave yourself the chance to see things from another perspective. When silence speaks louder. Sometimes, words are unnecessary. You know this. You know that sometimes the smartest thing you can do is to just stay silent while everything around you spins in its own chaos. This is an interesting one, because we live in a society that constantly tells us to speak up, express yourself, show us. But what happens when you just stop? I'm not talking about an awkward silence. I'm talking about that deep silence that somehow says more than words ever could. Those moments when silence becomes a response so powerful, it's like an invisible but powerful slap, more effective than the loudest shout. Maybe this has happened to you. You're in the middle of a discussion, and you feel it heading down a dead-end tunnel. You know there's no point in continuing to talk, but the other person just won't stop. And worse, every new word out of your mouth just makes things worse. So right in that moment, why not step back and let the silence do the talking for you? It seems that this deep silence is what makes people most uncomfortable. How is it possible that in the middle of a confrontation, the person who stays silent leaves a deeper mark than the one who keeps fighting? Because in these situations, silence acts as a mirror. It reflects back to the other person the very thing they need to see, but don't want to accept. Think about a time you decided to simply not respond. How did the other person react? Often, that silence tests their patience. It gives them a chance to think, what am I actually saying right now? For example, imagine a manager yelling at you unfairly at work. If you yell back, "You always do this to me," the fight just gets bigger and you've lowered yourself to their level. But instead you say nothing. You just look at them calmly but seriously. After a few moments, they will hear their own voice echoing in the space. How inappropriate and exaggerated it sounds. They might even feel ashamed. Your silence becomes a mirror, showing them how unacceptable their behavior is. More importantly, it's the realization that your value is measured not just by what you say, but by what you don't say. This isn't about being passive or a doormat. It's about knowing when to stand down and when to let your silence speak more powerfully than any sentence you could craft. The Stoics know. Not everything deserves a reaction, and often, the best reaction is no reaction at all. Because silence is not empty, it is full of answers. The person who stays silent isn't weak, they are solid. In that space of silence, instead of losing your cool, you find yourself. The other person might not understand your silence at first, but eventually, they will see that it was more effective than any shout. The art of letting go. Think about those times you've tried to desperately hold on to something, or someone. The harder you grip, the more it feels like everything is slipping through your fingers. Stress washes over you like an unstoppable wave. But what if I told you the secret isn't in holding on, but in letting go? I know it sounds like another popular self-help cliche, but hear me out. Letting go is one of the most powerful actions you can take. And by letting go, I don't mean your feelings end or that you give up on the people you love. No. Letting go is the act of understanding that the things you love do not own you. It's about abandoning the chase for everything you think you need. Of course, holding on is the easy part. Letting go is the hard part. But here's the trick. Letting go is not a loss. It's a liberation. The moment you stop clinging, you gain more clarity and more control. Imagine you're in one of those endless arguments. You know the ones. The pointless fights that are only about proving who is right. Your first impulse is to keep talking louder, to add more evidence. But what if instead you stepped back and went silent? Not out of cowardice, but out of understanding. Stoic philosophy talks a lot about this kind of detachment, not in a spiritual, mystical way, but in a practical one. What they're saying is this: letting go is about accepting the things you cannot control and focusing your energy on the things you can control. What should we let go of? Other people's opinions of us. We can't control them. The mistakes we made in the past, we can't control them. The traffic, the economy, whether it will rain tomorrow, we can't control them. What should we focus our energy on? Our own reactions, our own integrity, the choices we make today. Letting go isn't giving up on what you love. It's freeing yourself from the weight of expectations and anxiety that people and events can create. This is like a massive weight being lifted from your shoulders. It's the moment you put down the burdens you were never meant to carry. And if you let go of those expectations, you will discover an inner peace you couldn't imagine. Of course, this doesn't happen overnight. If it were easy, we wouldn't all be searching for quick fixes online. But when you understand the power of stepping back, you realize you're not losing anything. You're actually gaining the one thing no one can ever take from you: your own peace of mind. Transformative patience. How many times in your life have you wanted to force things to happen faster? We all fall into that trap. We think that waiting is the same as being passive, that it's a moment wasted. But let me tell you something. What looks like inaction to many is, for others, an opportunity to observe, think, and act better. This is where true power comes from that underrated virtue, patience. When you feel overwhelmed by the anxiety to have everything right now, the answer is usually patience. Imagine you're in a conversation, the other person is talking, but you're not really listening. You're just waiting for your turn to respond. You're anxious to share your opinion. So what happens? The dialogue moves too fast, you miss important details, and in the end, you say things you would never say if you were calm. Now imagine the opposite. What if you step back, stay silent for a moment, and don't rush? Suddenly, what seemed like a simple answer transforms into a deep thought. This principle is as old as time. The Stoics, for example, understood the power of waiting perfectly. For them, patience wasn't just enduring or surviving. Patience was a form of wisdom. It was a method for thinking before acting. A farmer plants a seed and then waits. They don't dig up the soil every day asking, "Has it grown yet?" Because they know some things can't be forced. They must mature. Patience is waiting wisely. It's allowing the sun, the water, and time to do their work. As Epictetus said, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Modern life is filled with pressure to move fast, to make decisions in the blink of an eye, to not waste time. But the truth is, real strength isn't in the speed of your reply, but in the wisdom of your response. And that wise response, in most cases, develops when you stop rushing and just observe the landscape. I'm not telling you to become a hermit and wait forever. But I want you to understand that often, true power lies in not rushing, in letting things unfold naturally. Step back, be silent, and you will see how sometimes people will beg you to intervene. The power of patience and waiting isn't just a philosophical concept, it is a practical and powerful tool we can all use in our daily lives. As Nelson Mandela said, "Waiting is not the absence of action but the anticipation of what is to come." In other words, waiting isn't sitting around doing nothing. It's preparing for the right moment. The peace of acceptance. Have you ever had those moments where you just don't know what to do? That intense frustration when you realize that something you're trying to change with all your might is still completely out of your control? It feels like the world is intentionally putting obstacles in your way just to show you how unfair it is. But what if I told you that the deepest change doesn't come from trying to control what's outside you, but from changing how you look at the things you cannot change? I offer you acceptance. That simple concept that always seems so complicated to practice. The truth is, accepting the things we cannot change is not surrender or giving up. It is, in fact, stepping into a calm space where we can see with greater clarity. Add a little Stoic philosophy to this mix, and you've found a powerful ally. This philosophy doesn't ask you to give up. It just asks you to understand that some things are not in your hands. The Stoics argued that we cannot change what is outside our control, but we can always control how we respond to it. The key is that non-judgmental view, the one that observes what happens without rushing to label it good or bad. Acceptance allows us to witness what's happening without letting our emotions take complete control. It's an invitation to be wiser, to see the bigger picture, instead of getting caught in the small dramas of the moment. So, how do we practice acceptance? First, by remembering that not everything needs to be fixed, solved, or changed right now. By giving yourself permission to accept what is, you free yourself from the burden of trying to control every single detail. Second, by allowing for that inner silence, which, over time, becomes a tool more powerful than any defensive strategy. And finally, by being patient. Because profound change never happens overnight. For example, Seneca at the end of each day would ask himself, "What weakness did I heal today? What fault did I stand against? In what way am I a better person?" This practice is accepting what happened, but learning from it to be better tomorrow. You see, acceptance isn't passivity, it's a clear-eyed assessment. As the ancient sages said, peace is found not by changing the world, but by changing your view of it. If you've made it this far, write, "You are more valuable for your silence" in the comments. Because silence is not just an action, it's a posture. When you are silent, your thoughts speak instead of your words. This makes you a more understanding, deeper, and more effective individual. This comment will show that you are part of a community that understands the power of silence and will help this message reach more people. To discover the power of silence is not just to watch, but to bring a change into your life. Let's deepen these ideas by sharing what you've learned from this video or the effects of silence in your own life in the comments. Continue to join us on this philosophical journey by subscribing to our channel and activating the notifications. Your support is my biggest motivation for creating this content. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, silence sometimes says more than the most powerful words.